Chapter 1. Son of the Steppes. The rise of Temujin. You are born not in the heart of a city or beneath the roof of a palace, but under the open sky of the vast Mongolian steppe. The wind is your lullaby, and the gallop of hooves your constant drumbeat. You belong to no empire, no mighty dynasty, only to a tribe, a people hardened by cold, by hunger, by war. Your name is Temujin, and though the world does not yet know it, you are destined to shake it to its core. Your earliest memories are not soft or kind. You remember the faces of your family, your father Yesuge, stern and strong, a chieftain of the Borjigin clan, respected and feared. He teaches you the ways of the bow, the horse, and the hunt. You remember your mother Hoelun, proud and unyielding, her eyes always scanning the horizon, watching for threats both natural and human. But the steppes are cruel, and your bloodline alone is not enough to secure your safety. One day, while returning from arranging your betrothal to a girl named Berta, your father accepts a cup of poisoned kumis from an enemy tribe, the Tatars. He never returns. The world changes in an instant. Without your father's strength, to protect you, your family is cast out. The tribe denies your right to succession. They drive you away, leaving your mother, your brothers, your young sisters, and you to fend for yourselves in the wilderness. You are 9 years old. You learn quickly that survival is not given. It is taken. Hunger becomes your constant companion. You eat wild roots and rodents, gather berries, trap birds. You watch as your mother stretches what little meat she can find to feed 5 mouths. You steal from hunters, evade wolves, and sleep with one eye open. But hardship does not break you, it sharpens you. The boy Temujin becomes steel. One day, in the midst of a bitter argument over food, you kill your half-brother Bekta with an arrow to the chest. There is no glory in it, only the realization that leadership, even in your own fractured family, must be earned through fear and dominance. You are only 12, yet your world remains small. You are a speck in the endless grasslands, a minor boy of a broken family, and still something stirs within you. You dream not of revenge, but of order, of uniting the fractured tribes who betray, kidnap, murder, and raid one another in an endless cycle. The world may be cruel, but it doesn't have to be chaos. Then come the years of bondage. The Taichiud tribe, former allies of your father, betray your family. They capture you and enslave you, placing a wooden collar around your neck like an animal. Days blur into nights as you carry water, build fires, and endure humiliation. But your spirit remains unbroken. You bide your time, watch your captors, and speak little, until one moonless night you escape. You vanish into the grasslands like a ghost. The collar is gone, but the memory of it brands your mind forever. Never again will you be someone's prisoner. You are 16 when you return to the place where your father first betrothed you to Berta. True to her family's promise, she marries you. Her people, the Ongirat, are powerful, and for the first time in years you feel the warmth of tribal alliance. But peace is short-lived. The Merkit, enemies of your father, raid your camp and abduct Berta. You do not weep, you do not beg. You rally your few allies, including an old childhood friend named Jamuka and a shrewd noble named Togrul, the Khan of the Kerite tribe, and ride in pursuit. Your determination is absolute. Weeks later, you defeat the Merkit and reclaim Berta. But something is different. She is pregnant, and you do not ask whose child it is. You raise the boy Yochi as your own, because now you understand something deeper. Power is not just about blood or horses. It is about loyalty and perception. With Berta by your side and vengeance behind you, you begin to gather strength. Other outcasts and renegades rally to your banner. You are not yet a Khan, but men begin to call you one. Still, the old world resists you. You are a threat to their order, or rather, their lack of it. The great families and tribal warlords fear you. They call you an upstart, a usurper, a heretic to tradition. Your greatest rival is the one who once fought beside you, Jamuka. He claims to be the true heir of the steppes, the legitimate Khan of the Mongol way. You, he says, are a mere bandit chief, a fool who would grant rank based on loyalty and talent, not noble blood. And when you clash in battle, his army outnumbers yours. He captures 70 of your men, and in an act of brutal defiance, boils them alive. You retreat into the hills. You nurse your wounds. You remember the wooden collar. And then you begin again. You court smaller tribes. You marry off your daughters and sisters to build alliances. You listen. You reward. You punish. You do not rule through fear alone. You promise something greater, stability. It takes years, but your network grows. Jamukha becomes isolated, arrogant. When you meet again in battle, this time the tide turns. You crush him utterly, and the tribes declare you Genghis Khan, a universal ruler. At the great Kurultai of 1206, you are now the master of all Mongols. From your camp on the Onon River, you look out across a united steppe. No Khan before. You has done this. You have forged a nation from a wilderness of feuding clans and shattered loyalties. Your laws, the Yasa, demand discipline and order. Your army is no longer just a horde. It is a machine, but you are not content with unity. You dream of movement, of expansion, of conquest. Your scouts bring word of the Xixia to the south, a rich kingdom at the edge of China. And beyond them, the Jin dynasty, bloated with wealth and arrogance. You do not yet know the names of Bukhara or Baghdad, of Kiev or Krakow, but you know this: the world is vast when it is weak, and you, the boy who was once abandoned to starvation, hunted by warlords and shackled in chains, now command an army that will ride farther, faster, and with more fury than any in Nii. Human history. The wind across the steppe carries your name now, Genghis Khan. Chapter 2. Forged in blood. Unity of the Mongol tribes. You stand atop the wind-swept hill, your cloak billowing like a banner. Around you, chieftains kneel. Some do so willingly, their eyes filled with respect. Others bow with clenched fists and bitter hearts. But they bow all the same. The steppe has spoken. You are no longer Temujin the outcast. You are Genghis Khan, universal ruler of all Mongols. But titles are fragile things. You know this better than anyone. A Khan is not kept aloft by words or bloodlines alone. He must prove himself, not once, but always. You do not celebrate long. There is no luxury in your court, no golden throne. Your power is not gilded. It is sharpened iron. You rise early, sleep little, and listen always. You understand that loyalty is not bought. It is forged, tested, and tempered like steel. And in the Mongol world, the forge is war. The tribes are now yours in name, but not yet in heart. Many still remember the old ways, of kin-based loyalty, of noble families dominating the lesser clans. They resent your laws, your appointments, your rise from obscurity. You are a threat not only to their customs, but to their very grip on power. So you act first, you reform, you break the tribal bonds that once ruled the steppe. No longer will warriors fight under the banners of their blood. You divide your people into units of 10, 100, 1,000, each group composed of men from different clans. Loyalty is to the unit, to their brothers in arms, and to you. The old nobility grumbles. Some threaten revolt. You do not flinch. You remind them, Cyrus, with quiet clarity, of the fate of those who once defied you. Then you write the Yasa, your code of law. Oral, flexible, but absolute. It is not only a rule book, it is a philosophy. Every man, noble or slave, is bound by it. Theft is punished with death. Cowardice, betrayal, corruption, all face swift and brutal justice. But fairness, too, is rewarded. You elevate the humble. You recognize skill. You make room for greatness in men born of dust and silence. Next, you organize your army, not just as a force of warriors, but as a society on horseback. Your soldiers become farmers in peacetime, administrators when needed. You institute a system of messengers, mounted riders with fresh horses at every station, able to carry your will across vast distances in days, not weeks. The yam, you call it, the veins of your empire. You reward merit, you punish treason, and slowly the people begin to believe. They follow you. Not just because they fear you, but because you offer them something the steppes have never known: order. Still, the past is not silent. The tribes you defeated remember their shame, and none remember more bitterly than Jamukha's former allies. One by one, the whispers begin. Old leaders speak of revolt, of restoring the true Mongol ways, the tribal ways. They gather in secret, calling themselves the 20,000, a confederation of disgruntled warlords, former elites, and bitter clans. You find out, of course. Your spies are everywhere now. And so you march, your army, lean and ruthless, rides with speed that terrifies your enemies. You strike first at the weakest of the conspirators. You offer them a chance, submission or death. Some bend the knee, others resist. You make examples of them, public, brutal, final. Then you turn to the ringleaders. You remember their names. You remember their insults, their sneers at your birth, their jeers when you were cast out, when you wore a slave's collar. You do not forget. The final battle is swift and decisive. The rebel lords are captured. You summon your generals, your officers, your clan elders. Before them all, you strip the traitors of rank, of horse, of name. You execute them not with fanfare, but with the cold efficiency of a surgeon removing rot from flesh. And when the dust settles, there are no more rivals. You are now the undisputed ruler of the steppe. The tribes are unified, not by marriage or promise, but by blood and fear and vision. But victory brings its own dangers. Peace, even brief, makes men soft. The warriors grow restless. Their hands twitch for bowstrings. Their eyes turn south, to richer lands, softer people, easier plunder. You understand. The steppes are harsh. They teach only one lesson: move or die. And so you prepare to move. You summon your generals, Yabi, the arrow, Subutai, the mind. Of 1,000 roads, Jelme, your lifelong shadow. These are not mere soldiers, they are legends. They are your brothers in blood, forged in the crucible of conquest. You tell them of your vision, not merely raids, but expansion. Not just looting, but domination. They do not question. They mount their horses. You begin with the Shisha, the Western Xia kingdom, nestled between deserts and mountains, arrogant in its wealth and isolation. You send them an envoy. They dismiss you as a barbarian. You smile. Your armies cross the Gobian days. The desert that has broken empires yields to your iron discipline. You besiege cities, smash walls, and break armies. The Shisha sue for peace, offer tribute, swear allegiance. You accept, for now. Then your eyes turn to the Jin. This is no minor kingdom. The Jin rule northern China. Their cities are grand. Their armies number in the hundreds of thousands. They have war machines, fortresses, rivers of gold. But you are not deterred. You understand that numbers are not strength. Discipline is, strategy is, mobility is, and above all, unity. The Mongols, once a fractured chaos of clans, now ride as one. You split your army into multiple columns, each with precise objectives. You feint and flank, lure and destroy. You break the Jin lines not with brute force, but with speed and deception. City after city falls, and in every conquest you send a message. Submission brings mercy. Resistance brings fire. You do not waste. Men on sieges. If a city resists too long, you breach its gates and burn it. You execute the leaders, spare the craftsmen, absorb the willing. The Jin emperor flees south. You do not chase, is not yet. You know how to wait. You sow terror and let it bloom. Your armies return with spoils, with captives, with stories of conquest, and the Mongol people, once starved and scattered, now feast in the halls of fallen kings. Yet even in triumph, you remember the collar. You remember hunger, betrayal, exile. You teach your sons not to crave comfort, but to fear it. You ride with your men, sleep in the dust, eat from the same pot. You are Khan, but you are still a warrior. And so, you prepare for more for father, because the world is vast and yours. Chapter 3. The Thunder Beyond the Wall. War with the Jin dynasty. The winter wind slices through your cloak like a blade. Around you, the steppe is silent, blanketed in snow and smoke. The horizon blurs where the white earth meets the gray sky. And yet your gaze is fixed far beyond. Not just beyond the hill, but beyond the Great Wall itself. You see the lands of the Jin, and you mean to claim them. You've tested their strength. You've felt their resistance. They call you a storm from the north, whiz a barbarian tempest that brings fire and ruin. But they do not yet understand. You are not a storm. Storms pass. You are a force of history. The Jin dynasty, heir to centuries. Of Chinese dynasties, rules over cities that glitter like constellations and palaces that stretch like dreams. But you see something else: corruption, cowardice, decay. Their walls are tall, but their resolve is shallow. Their generals squabble over court politics while your riders practice blood drills in the snow. They wear silk, your warriors wear wolfskin and discipline. You call your sons and your greatest generals to council. Yochi, your quiet and ambitious eldest. Chagatai, proud and fierce. Ogadai, thoughtful and measured. Tolui, the youngest and deadliest. Alongside them stand Subutai and Jebe, the thunder and lightning of your command. You do not give speeches, you give orders. The conquest of Jin is not a campaign, it is a crusade. You will not raid and retreat. You will dismantle the dynasty brick by brick. The Great Wall, meant to keep your kind at bay, is no longer a barrier. It is a challenge. You split your army into 4. One under Subutai rides west to loop behind enemy lines. One under Jebe drives down the central corridor. Your sons lead flanking attacks, and you ride at the heart of the storm. Winter is your ally. The rivers freeze, becoming highways. The passes are snow-choked, but you move through them like smoke through reeds. Your soldiers eat dried meat, ride day and night, rest in shifts. The Jin never imagined war in the dead of winter, but you do not fight by their rules. Your first target is the city of Zhongdu, what they now call Beijing. It is vast, layered in walls and filled with soldiers, a city of pride, gold, and decadence. You surround it not with ladders, but with precision. You cut off trade, poison wells, isolate villages. You starve the city of life before you breach a single gate. When the walls do not fall, you build siege engines. You've learned from your Chinese and Persian captives. You adopt their techniques, improve upon them, and unleash them with merciless rhythm. Catapults rain stones over the ramparts. Firebombs scream through the sky. The defenders respond with arrows, oil, cries, but they are already broken inside. A court that squabbles does not inspire soldiers to die for it. As weeks turn to months, Zhongdu festers. You offer terms, surrender, and live they refuse. So you storm the outer wall. Your warriors scale ladders as drums thunder, arrows blot the sky, men fall. You do not halt. By nightfall, the outer city is in flames. Still, the inner citadel holds. You allow no rest. The battering rams return. The fires rise. Inside, famine spreads. Rats become currency. Mothers weep in silence. You do not rejoice. You are beyond emotion. You are the will of history made flesh. Finally, the gates splinter. Your soldiers pour through, howling like wolves. The defense crumbles, the slaughter begins, not out of cruelty but out of message. You want the world to see what resistance brings. Zhongdu burns. But not all cities must suffer this fate. As word spreads of Zhongdu's fall, other towns send envoys. They come on trembling knees, bearing gold, grain, and daughters. You accept their submission. You post guards at their gates, forbid looting, protect temples. You show the dual faces of your rule, wrath and mercy. In every conquered town, you install loyal governors. You demand tribute, yes, but also justice. You re-establish trade. You open roads, farmers return to fields. Order replaces fear. Still, the Jin court clings to life in the south. The emperor hides behind new walls. You could chase him, but you see farther. The Jin are not your only enemy. To the west lies Khwarezm, a powerful Muslim empire, rich with caravans and cities of stone. They insulted your ambassadors, killed your merchants. You remember, but before you march west, you must finish the Jin. You unleash Subutai and Jebe. You give them no armies, just 10,000 elite riders. You do not tell them how to win. You trust that they will. They disappear into the forests and mountains. You remain in the east, consolidating. You collect engineers, scholars, and smiths. You learn everything: how to break a wall, how to spin silk, how to store grain. Knowledge is a weapon. You wield it. Meanwhile, Subutai rides in silence. He attacks not cities but supply lines. He burns granaries. He poisons rivers. He doesn't aim to conquer. He aims to collapse. Entire provinces surrender at his shadow. By the time he rejoins you, the south is gasping. You strike one final time, swift, direct, overwhelming. The Jin emperor flees again. But now even his own nobles betray him. His generals surrender without battle, cities open their gates, and at last, the dynasty breaks. You ride into the capital not as a destroyer, but as a ruler. The people kneel, not out of fear, but because there is nothing else left. You do not raise the palaces, you study them. You do not kill the scholars, you hire them. The banners of the jinn are torn down. In their place, your standard, a simple patch of black, flaps in the wind. You have done what the world thought impossible. The horsemen of the steppe have destroyed one of the oldest empires in Asia, but your eyes are already turned westward. The jinn are finished. The world is not. Chapter 4. Blood on the Silk Road. The war against Khwarezmia, the wind over the steppe, is different now. No longer a whisper of cold, but a humming promise of vengeance. You've shattered the jinn, but your heart does not rest. Your enemies are no longer neighbors. They lie on the far edge of the map behind deserts and mountains. The empire of Khwarezmia awaits, and in your soul there burns a reason that makes this war more personal than any before. It began with trust. You had sent a caravan, not of soldiers but of merchants, to the great city of Otrar on the edge of the Khwarezmian realm. They bore your seal, your protection, and trade goods meant to open a bridge between your empire and the Muslim world. But they never returned. The Shah of Khwarezm, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, ordered them arrested, accused them of spying, and worse, he allowed his governor in Otrar to execute them and seize their goods. You did not reply with rage. You sent envoys, 3 of your most trusted men, in to demand justice, not war. One came back. His beard was burned. His companions were dead. One had been beheaded. The Shah had mocked your emissary and spit on your name. You stared at the survivor, in silence. Then you stood and spoke 6 words that would change history. The Shah has chosen war then. You began to plan, not just for victory, but for obliteration. You would not raid and retreat. You would erase the insult from the memory of the earth. Khwarezmia would not be defeated. It would be dismantled. The Khwarezmian Empire was vast, from the Caspian Sea to the Hindu Kush, ruling over Persia, Transoxiana, and parts of modern-day Afghanistan. It had walls, cities, fortresses, and armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands, but it did not have you. You divide your forces. Again, 3 great columns moving as one will, one under your son Yochi, one under Chagatai and Ogadei, and one under your own command. Subutai and Jebe flank to the north, their movements like shadows before lightning. You do not march blindly. You know the desert. You know the mountains. You study the rivers, the routes, the defenses. Your scouts are ghosts, your riders move with no warning. The Shah gathers his armies, a patchwork of mercenaries, tribal levies, and conscripted townsfolk. He underestimates you. You strike first, hard and fast. Otrar, the city of betrayal, falls within months. You surround it, starve it, breach it, and make an example of its governor. He dies not by blade, but by molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. Word spreads, not just of your army, but of your memory. You do not forget. You do not forgive. City after city collapses. Bukhara, the jewel of the Silk Road, opens its gates, and yet you do not show mercy. You address the people in the mosque, not as a conqueror, but as a reckoning. If you had not committed this sin, you tell them, Allah would not have sent me to punish you. You allow the plundering of Bukhara, not out of greed, but to sow terror. You move next to Samarkandi. Larger, stronger, guarded by war elephants and tens of thousands of men. The Shah hides behind its walls. You surround the city, but siege is not your only weapon. You release prisoners from previous conquests, Chinese engineers who build siege towers, Muslim defectors who reveal weak points, even former enemies who now fear you more than they ever hated you. You build rams, catapults, mines. You bombard without rest. The defenders fight hard, but they are leaderless. The Shah flees again, leaving his generals behind, and Samarkand falls. You massacre 1/3 of its population. You enslave thousands more. The rest scatter. The Silk Road, once a lifeline of trade, is now a corridor of fire and blood. The Shah, increasingly desperate, attempts to regroup in Nishapur, then Merv, then Balkh. But everywhere he flees, you follow. Not with one army, but with many. You are inescapable. You are a storm with purpose. When he sends his son Jalal ad-Din to rally resistance, you turn your attention to him. The son is brave, a fierce warrior, but bravery is not enough. You pursue him across the mountains of Afghanistan, over rivers, through ravines. He fights you at the Battle of the Indus and loses. He leaps into the river on horseback to escape. You do not pursue. You have proven your point. As for the Shah, he dies alone on an island in the Caspian Sea, consumed not by your blade, but by fear, disease, and disgrace. No court, no crown, just sand and silence. But you are not yet finished. You divide your army again. Subutai and Jebe are sent on a legendary raid across the Caucasus, a reconnaissance in force that leaves Georgian, Armenian, and even Kievan Rus armies broken. They travel over 5,000 miles in under 2 years, defeating every army that dares oppose them. You send messengers to every sultan, emir, and khan between the Caspian and the Oxus. Submit or suffer. Many do submit, not just out of fear, but because they see what you bring: order, trade, law. You abolish torture. You protect envoys. You enforce discipline among your troops. You also implement postal stations, rebuild roads, standardize weights and measures. The world you conquer does not crumble. It adapts. You are no longer just a warlord. You are a lawgiver. But the blood on your hands is real. Millions have died. Cities have burned. Libraries, mosques, and palaces have turned to ash. Some call you a demon. Others answer prophet. But you do not listen to titles. You listen to fate. And fate tells you this: the world is still wide. To the west, the lands of the Rus stir. To the south, the Sultanate of Delhi sharpens its sword. To the east, your generals ask if Japan lies within reach. But for now, the conquest of Khwarezmia is complete. You return to Karakoram, to your family, your court, your growing empire. But your dreams do not return with you. They ride on the wind, westward still. Chapter 5. The Law of the Eternal Blue Sky, Founding the Mongol State. You return not in triumph, but in silence, from the burning walls of Bukhara and Samarkand, from the banks of the Indus, where shahs have drowned and cities have crumbled. You ride back to the steppe, to the wide whispering emptiness where no marble stands, no gold glitters. Only wind, only grass, only memory. The warriors cheer your arrival. Your sons ride to your side. The banners are raised high, but you do not smile. You are no longer the rider who fought to reclaim his stolen wife. You are no longer the tribal chieftain forced to eat roots and snow to survive winter. You are not just Genghis Khan, Lord of the Oceans. You are something larger, something the world has not seen before. You are the maker of a new order. The victories are behind you. Now comes the work that will last beyond your bones. You begin with the law, not the kind whispered in tents or chanted by shamans, not the tribal customs that vanish with each fallen chieftain. You gather scribes, not Mongols, but Uyghurs, Chinese, Persians, those who can write, codify, preserve. You call your code Yasa, the sacred law. It is not written for the weak, but for the eternal. Loyalty to the Khan is absolute. Theft is punished by death. The spoils of war are shared. Equally, Malpi, no one eats until the warriors are fed. No blood is spilled within the Khan's camp. Religious tolerance is enforced. Shamans, imams, monks, priests, all are protected. You do not care what gods men worship, only that they obey. You outlaw noble privilege. The sons of herders ride beside princes. A poor man can rise by merit, not name. You create an empire not of bloodlines, but of discipline. The soldiers call you Kagan, universal ruler, but you see farther still. You order the creation of a postal system, the Yam, a line of way stations across thousands of miles. Every 25 miles, a fresh horse, a new rider. Orders travel from Korea to the Caspian in weeks. You implement writing, not just for records, but identity. You adopt the Uyghur script for official use, ensuring that your laws will be remembered when your voice is dust. You send your sons as governors, not to rule by whim, but to learn. You teach them to lead as you did, by hunting with their men, eating from the same pot, sleeping on the same earth. Your daughters too are given power, married not just to secure alliances, but as administrators and regents in your name, Ati. Your court in Karakoram, a city of felt and vision, men of every land gather, Chinese engineers, Persian doctors, Muslim astronomers, Nestorian priests, Indian traders. They speak many tongues, follow many creeds, but they kneel to one flag, you. Do not trust only your kin. You elevate those who prove themselves. Subutai, your general and born of a blacksmith's family, now commands a force that has crossed more rivers than Alexander. Yelu Chukai, a Chinese Confucian, becomes your minister, a man who urges mercy over massacre. You listen to him sometimes. Shigi Kutuka, your adopted son, a boy taken from a rival, now the judge of your empire, you do not forget loyalty, nor betrayal. You seek not merely conquest, but order. To make that order real, you convene a great Kurultai, the assembly of all Mongol nobles, warriors, and generals. You sit at its head. The wind is strong. The sky is cloudless. The eternal blue sky, whom you still whisper prayers to, watches. You speak of unity. You declare that the tribes are one people now, not Merkit, not Naiman, not Tatar, but Mongol. You outlaw tribal feuds. You define the punishments for crimes. You reward the loyal with titles, lands, and honor. You begin the work of dividing the world into what is yours and what shall be. The crowd roars its approval. They raise fermented mare's milk in your name. But beneath the surface, not all are content. Joki, your eldest son, remains distant. Whispers still follow him, that he is not your true blood, that he was born of another man. You never speak it aloud. But the shadow grows. Chagatai, your second son, is brave and ruthless but blunt. He clashes with Yochi, questions his legitimacy. Ogede, your third, is balanced, thoughtful, a lover of wine and stories, but also a builder. You make your choice. At the next Kurultai, when your time ends, the empire will pass to Ogede, not by birthright, but because he is the one who can hold the house you have built. The other sons accept it, outwardly. You see the tension in their eyes. You smell the storm far off. Still, you press forward. You begin a census to know what you rule. How many horses, how many families, how much tribute. You appoint tax collectors, but you forbid cruelty. They are to take grain, livestock, silver, but not blood. You institute a law. All messengers and merchants are sacred. Any man who harms them shall die. Trade is your empire's lifeblood. You open the roads, you secure the borders. You allow Jews in Bukhara, Buddhists in Tibet, Christians in the Caucasus, Muslims across Transoxiana. Your empire does not convert, it absorbs. But peace does not last long. The western horizon beckons. The Rus stir in their wooden cities. The kingdoms of Hungary and Poland sleep uneasily. And to the south in China, the Song dynasty waits, proud, rich, and defiant. You know the empire must expand, not out of greed, but necessity. Mongols do not farm, they ride, they trade, they conquer. To stop is to die. You begin preparations. You send scouts across the Himalayas. You send Subutai west again to chart the lands of the Caucasus, the steppes beyond the Volga. You speak less now. You sleep less. You look at the maps not with wonder but with hunger. But in the cold of night, when the fire crackles low and your wives have left and your bones ache, you whisper prayers, not for victory but for legacy. You wonder if your sons will hold what you have gathered, if the Yasa will survive ambition, if the laws you've laid down will be honored when your skull is dust. You walk into the night, barefoot, cloakless, and look up. The stars do not speak, but the silence feels like an answer. Chapter 6. Thunder from the West. Subutai and the invasion of Europe, you are not the one who rides this time. Your bones have grown heavy. The cold of the steppe seeps deeper into your joints. You remain in the heart of your empire, in the felt-walled camps where your children argue, your generals report, and the maps grow ever larger. But your shadow rides on, in the form of a man you have trusted above all others, Subutai. He was not born into greatness. He was the son of a humble blacksmith. But you saw the iron in him, not in his hands but in his mind. Where others saw only borders, Subutai saw corridors, routes, flaws in the armor of kingdoms. Now you send him west, not for vengeance, not for tribute, but for understanding, for vision, for preparation. Because you know, the world does, not know what is coming. The campaign begins. Subutai departs with a small force at first, 10,000 horsemen, just 10,000. In Europe, armies boast hundreds of thousands. Kings ride at the head of glittering columns. Castles dot the land like scars. But you and Subutai understand the truth. Numbers do not win wars. Speed, surprise, precision, fear. These are the real weapons. In 1220, he rides through the Caucasus, circling behind the crumbling kingdom of Georgia. He does not stay to conquer. He maps, he tests, he learns. Georgian knights fall before Mongol bows, and the rumor begins to spread. A new terror, a phantom army, strikes and vanishes like smoke. He moves into the Russ's lands, the patchwork, of Kievan princes, wooden cities, and winter mud. He burns Kozelsk, Suzdal, and Ryazan, and leaves them as charred warnings. No city is spared unless it surrenders. But this is not conquest, not yet. This is prelude. You have ordered him to scout the edge of Europe, to learn the shape of the land beyond your maps. What he brings back is terrifying even to you. Subutai rides as far as the Dnieper and returns with intelligence. The kingdoms are divided. The knights fight each other more than they fight us. Their cities are walled, but the lands between are soft. They are not prepared. That is all you need to know. You send word, prepare for full invasion, and Subutai does, not in months, in years, because what is coming will shake the world. The Great Western Campaign, it is now 1236. You are dead. Your ashes rest in a secret grave, somewhere on the Khenti Mountains, guarded by silence and blood. But your dream breathes. Through Subutai, he has gathered the storm. Over 130,000 men ride with him, the largest and most disciplined army the steppe has ever forged. And not just Mongols. He commands Turks, Tatars, Kipchaks, Uyghurs, Chinese engineers, Persian siege experts. Your empire is no longer tribal, it is imperial. The invasion is not a strike, it is a symphony of terror. Subutai splits his force into multiple columns, hundreds of miles apart. Each rides with the speed of wind, guided by scouts who know every hill, every ford, every village path. Their goal, total envelopment. They hit Volga Bulgaria first, a Muslim kingdom, rich from trade. It burns in days. Then comes Ryazan, again. This time with no survivors. Then Moscow, still a fledgling city, gone. Then Vladimir, once a beacon of Orthodox Christianity. Its cathedral collapses in fire. The Rus princes try to unite, too late. At the Battle of the Kalka River, Subutai feigns retreat for 9 days, then turns and annihilates them in an ambush that is studied for centuries. The bodies are buried, alive beneath wooden platforms, where Mongol commanders sit and feast. This is more than war. It is demonstration. Poland and Hungary, the horns of the demon now. Subutai turns his eyes westward, to Poland, where knights wear iron from crown to Hungary, where King Bela IV commands vast armies and thinks Mongols are merely horse-riding barbarians. They are wrong. Subutai sends a diversionary force into Poland under Baidar and Kadan. It is not meant to hold land, only to confuse, terrify and divide. They clash with the Teutonic Knights, the pride of German crusaders at Legnica. Polish forces gather from Krakow, Silesia and beyond. They are crushed. A Mongol detachment holds up the severed head of Duke Henry II of Silesia on a spear. The rest of the army flees. Poland burns. Meanwhile, Subutai takes the main force south, through the Carpathian Mountains in the dead of winter. No one expects an army to move through such terrain, but the Mongols do. By the time King Bela IV realizes what is happening, it is too late. His army, over 70,000 strong, meets Subutai's host at the Battle of Mohi on the Sajo River. It is a trap. While Hungarian forces celebrate holding the bridge, Subutai builds a second crossing by night. At dawn, Mongols attack from both sides. Arrows fall like rain, drums thunder, Panic spreads. The Hungarian army is encircled, slaughtered. The Mongols do not pursue Bela. They do not need to. Hungary lies open. Villages are torched. Cities are surrounded, starved, and taken. Pest is emptied. The roads are littered with corpses. Survivors flee to the west, carrying tales of horse demons who cannot be stopped. Europe wakes in fear. The gates of the West Subutai stands on the border of Vienna. He has already mapped routes into Italy, Germany, and France. Nothing stands in his way. Europe is divided. The Holy Roman Emperor squabbles with the Pope. England and France feud across the Channel. No coalition has formed. No united front awaits. But then the unthinkable happens. A rider comes, he brings news from the east. Ugaday Khan is dead, and according to your Yasa, no matter where the Mongol princes are, no matter how far they've ridden, they must return to the capital to elect a new great Khan. Subutai obeys. Reluctantly, he halts the campaign. Hungary is left broken, Poland scarred. But the heart of Europe is spared, not by might but by chance. The Mongols vanish into the east, the aftermath. The Europeans do not understand what has happened. Some believe God saved them. Others say the Mongols feared winter, disease, or the strength of western walls. They are wrong. Subutai's invasion was not a raid. It was a scouting operation of conquest, executed with flawless precision, ending only by protocol. Had it continued, the map of Europe would be written in a different tongue. You would have smiled, not out of cruelty, but satisfaction, because your empire is now limitless, not just in land but in memory. The Mongols are no longer a forgotten people between empires. They are the empire, and Subutai, your general, your shadow, has become a god of war. He has marched farther than Alexander, crossed more rivers than Caesar, burned more cities than Attila, but he does not boast. He returns to Karakorum, bows before Ogaday, and waits, because the west still beckons. And you, from beyond the grave, still whisper in the wind, the world has not yet ended, ride again. Chapter 7, The Fall of Jin. The final blow to northern China. You have long departed this world, but your legacy is not ashes, it is steel, it is fire, it is the sound of hooves crashing through frozen rivers and walls crumbling beneath thunder. You had begun this war, a war with an empire that once looked down on your people. The Jin dynasty, arrogant, rich, powerful, but crumbling. Now, after decades of war and rebellion, betrayal and siege, the reckoning arrives, and though your eyes are closed forever, your dream opens wider than ever before. It is 1232. And the final storm against Jin has begun, a war of decades. You remember how it started, how the Jin envoys mocked your name, how they demanded tribute, how they looked at your banners as if they were made of dirt. You remember how they armed your enemies and sent assassins to test your resolve. So you struck back. In 1211, you had crossed the Gobi and crushed them at Yehuling Pass, the mountains echoing with screams as your horsemen surged over ridges like wolves. You had taken Zhongdu, the capital, and left it a ruin of smoke and tears. But you did not finish them. Jin limped south, retreating to Kaifeng, still ruling broken lands, still claiming to be the rightful lords of the north. Your son, Ogaday, now Great Khan, refuses to leave the job undone. He sees what you saw, an empire on the brink, ruled by cowardice and corrosion, an empire whose fall will shatter the balance of power in all East Asia. So he prepares, and this time there will be no escape. The siege of Kaifeng, it begins with the Mongol storming of Henan province, heart of the Jin's final holdings. Cities fall one after another. Luoyang, Yinchuan, Bozhou. Resistance is rare. Peasants open gates. Garrison commanders defect. The stench of death already hangs over Jin territory, and yet Kaifeng stands, the ancient capital, a city of canals and libraries, pagodas and gates defended by thick walls and decades of desperation. The Jin Emperor, Wanyan Shoshu, believes he can wait you out. His generals swear that the Mongols cannot breach such walls, but he underestimates two things: your patience, your mastery of siege. The Mongols are not mere raiders anymore. They come with Chinese engineers, Muslim catapult masters, and siege towers forged in fire and iron. They do not just circle Kaifeng, they consume it. Tunnels are dug beneath the walls. Battering rams are wheeled forward in waves. Oil is poured into the moats and set alight. Every night drums thunder from the Mongol camps like the heartbeat of fate. Inside the city, famine spreads. Rats vanish. Then cats. Then children disappear. You do not rejoice in their suffering, but you do not stop. Because this is not vengeance anymore. It is completion. The final proof that the world has changed. That steppe riders now hold heaven's mandate. The betrayal. Within, the siege drags on into winter. And then, as always, rot begins from within. The Jin Emperor orders his own generals executed for failing to break the Mongol lines. He accuses his ministers of treason. He demands the people sacrifice more grain, more sons. And so, one by one, his defenders lose faith. Some open secret gates. Others flee into the night, vanishing across the Yangtze. Still, Kaifeng holds, barely. Ogedei does not panic. He does not waste lives in reckless assaults. He sends riders in every direction to cut off reinforcements. He builds more siege engines, larger than ever before, trebuchets that hurl firepots the size of oxen. He waits, patiently, like you taught him. And then, in the spring of 1233, as famine reaches its peak, plague enters the city. Not even walls can stop that. Bodies pile in alleys. Fires burn for weeks trying to stop the spread. The emperor hides in his palace, surrounded by shrines, praying for a miracle. It never comes. Instead, emissaries do. The emperor falls, the Jin send envoys to sue for peace. They offer gold, silks, hostages. Ogedei laughs. He knows, as you once did, that mercy now would be weakness. So he demands only one thing: total surrender. The Jin court divides. Some want to keep fighting, to burn Kaifeng to the ground rather than hand it over. Others see the end clearly. They remove the emperor, Wanyan Shoshu, and replace him with a cousin, Wanyan Chenglin, a man more pliable, more desperate. But it changes nothing. Ogedei orders the final assault. On a moonless night in early 1234, the Mongols storm Kaifeng from 5 directions. Fire arrows rain over the walls. Gates are shattered by siege carts. Mongol infantry pour in, backed by Khitan allies and Chinese defectors. The city is overwhelmed in hours. The Jin emperor tries to flee. He is captured and executed. And thus, after a century of rule, the Jin dynasty is erased. Their imperial seals, their records, their royal bloodlines all disappear into dust. The shifting world, you would have wept had you still been alive. Not for the Jin, but for the beauty that was lost in the fire. The scrolls of Confucian wisdom, the temples that stood since the Song, the gardens flooded with blood, all sacrificed in the tide of history. But you also would have smiled, because your sons have proven they can finish what you started. That your conquest was not a spark, it was a sun. Northern China now lies entirely in Mongol hands. The Song dynasty to the south watches in terror, knowing they are next. No wall can protect them now. No mountain is too high, no river too wide. The Mongols are not a rumor anymore. They are the new empire. And the Chinese people, millions of them, begin to learn your name. Not in fear, but in reverence. After the fall, Kaifeng becomes a ghost city for years. Its people scatter. But the Mongols do not stay to loot and rot. They move on, they record, they restructure. They begin preparing for what you always knew was inevitable, the unification of all China. Ogedei turns to the south, to the Song. New generals rise. Kublai, your grandson, is a child no longer. He studies scrolls of war, rides his first campaigns, and dreams not of battles, but of cities where Mongol banners fly beside jade towers. The final chapter of the conquest is yet unwritten, but one truth is now eternal. Genghis Khan began it. The Khans will finish it, and history will never forget the fall of Jin, not as an isolated war, but as the final breath of the old world. You are gone, but your name is carved in Kaifeng's ruins, and in every corner of the world, where people whisper of an empire that could not be stopped. Chapter 8. Kublai Khan, the emperor of 2 worlds. You were the conqueror, the lightning across the steppe. the flame that turned cities to shadows, but it is your grandson who will shape what your empire becomes. Where your path was war, his path is rule. Where you rode with instinct, he governs with vision. His name is whispered not just as a conqueror, but as something far rarer in your bloodline, a builder. His name is Kublai, and though you never saw his reign, you laid its foundation in stone and fire. Now let us walk with him. Let us see what becomes of a world once ruled by you, when power no longer gallops on horseback, but sits upon a throne. The making of a Khan Kublai is not raised in the windswept tents of Mongolia, but in the courts of northern China. Boy caught between worlds, his tutors are Chinese scholars, versed in Confucian texts and Song dynasty bureaucracy. He reads about emperors who ruled not through might, but through harmony, order, and moral virtue. He learns Mandarin before he learns Mongolian poetry. He understands the rhythm of court life, the weight of rituals, the subtleties of governance. But, make no mistake, he is still your blood. His early campaigns are not fought in scrolls. He rides into Yunnan, crushes rebellions, and tests himself against mountain tribes and entrenched governors. When he speaks, generals listen. When he writes, scholars bow. By the time Ogadai dies, Kublai is more than a prince. He is a contender. But ambition in your family is dangerous, and the empire you built is already cracking. The fracturing empire. After Ogadai's death, your sons and grandsons turn against each other. The empire, once united under your banner, becomes a battlefield of cousins. In the west, the Golden Horde rules the Russian steppes. In the southwest, the Ilkhanate emerges in Persia. And in the heartland, the throne of the great Khan becomes a prize fought over with daggers and deceit. It is Mungke, Kublai's elder brother, who first brings back the flame of unity. Declared Great Khan in 1251, he sets out to reclaim what you once commanded, and he turns to Kublai, not for war but for China. Mungke's plan is clear. The Song dynasty in the south, the last Chinese empire untouched by your storm, must fall. But it cannot be conquered by brute force alone. It needs a ruler who understands both Mongol thunder and Chinese silk. Kublai is that man. The southern campaign, the Song dynasty, is no simple target. Though weakened by years of political decay, it remains vast, rich, and deeply rooted in Chinese culture. Its armies are disciplined, its cities are fortified, its rivers, vast and twisting like dragons, serve as natural moats, impossible to cross with ease. Kublai begins with strategy. He recruits Chinese engineers to design pontoon bridges. He builds floating fortresses. He adapts, like you did, not by copying the enemy, but by outthinking them. He does not burn every city. He absorbs them. He wins over local elites, promotes Chinese officials, and establishes schools and tax systems. When Song generals defect, he rewards them not with gold, but with rank and stability. And the people notice. Here is a Mongol, not just wearing the emperor's robe, but understanding it. The death of Mungke, the rise of the Khan But, as Kublai, lays siege to the Song. News arrives from Karakorum. Mungke is dead. The empire fractures again. His brothers demand the throne. One, Arik Boka, claims the support of the Mongol homeland. He declares himself Khan and demands Kublai return to Karakorum to submit. Kublai hesitates. The war in China is not yet done. The Song still hold the south. But he knows what you once said. A man who hesitates loses both saddle and steed. He returns, not to surrender but to claim. In 1260, in a Chinese-style ceremony, Kublai declares himself the Great Khan. He does not do it in the steppes. He does it in a Chinese palace, wearing Chinese robes, with the mandate of heaven in hand. Arik. Foke challenges him. The brothers clash in a brutal civil war, step against court, tradition against transformation. Kublai wins, but the price is steep. The empire is now broken, 4 khanates, each independent in all but name. Kublai understands what this means. He cannot rule the world, but he can rule China. The birth of a new dynasty in 1271, Kublai makes a bold declaration. He is not just Khan of the Mongols. He is Emperor of China. He names his regime the Yuan dynasty, a name drawn from the I Ching, symbolizing the origin of the universe. He moves his capital to Dadu, modern-day Beijing, and builds a city of canals and palaces, blending Mongol boldness with Chinese grandeur. And then in 1279, after decades of war, his army finally destroys the Song. The last Song emperor, a child, is forced to flee. His loyalists make a final stand on the sea, where their fleet is annihilated. The boy is said to have been thrown into the waves by his guardian, choosing death over capture. With that, for the first time in 300 years, all of China is unified. By a Mongol, by your grandson. The emperor of two worlds, Kublai, is not content to rest. He launches ambitious campaigns into Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Burma, Java. Some succeed, others falter. But his vision is never small. He builds schools, roads, postal stations, observatories. He encourages trade along the Silk Road and across the seas. Under his rule, Marco Polo arrives from Venice and writes of cities more splendid than any in Europe. He embraces Buddhism, patronizes Taoist temples, and respects Confucian ideals. His court is a melting pot. Mongol warriors dine beside Persian astrologers and Tibetan monks. But ruling two worlds is not easy. The Mongols accuse him of becoming too Chinese. The Chinese view him as a foreigner in imperial robes. He tries to bridge the gap. But the rift grows. Still he governs, and in his presence your dream continues. The waning years as age creeps upon him. Kublai grows heavier, slower. His favorite wife dies. His son, the heir, passes too. He turns to wine and melancholy. He no longer rides into battle. His campaigns lose their fire. His court grows fat with luxury and politics. But even as decline sets in, his legacy is sealed. He rules a population of over 100 million, the largest and richest empire on earth. His Yuan dynasty sets administrative models that will influence China for centuries. And when he dies in 1294, he is not remembered as a barbarian. He is remembered as an emperor. Your dream lives on. You would not have recognized the court he built, the silken robes, the painted walls, the bureaucrats reading Confucius, but you would have recognized his heart. He did not forget your lessons. He did not run from your shadow. He built upon it. Where you broke empires, he built one. Where you inspired fear, he earned reverence. Together, you and he form two halves of a legacy unlike any other. You, the conqueror, he, the ruler, and through him, your name becomes more than a memory. It becomes a dynasty, a legend, a world. Chapter 9. The Death of an Empire. Fracture and decline, you were fire once. Your empire had no end. From the rivers of China to the forests of Poland, your horsemen galloped without resistance. The world bent before your thunder. But fire does not burn forever. Even the greatest empires die, not with a single blow, but by 1,000 cuts, slow and unseen. Your dream, kept alive by Kublai, begins to dim. Now, you stand at the edge of history. The century of the Mongols is ending, and though your name remains, the empire you built begins to unravel, piece by piece, dynasty by dynasty, bone by bone. The afterglow of Kublai. When Kublai dies in 1294, the Yuan dynasty is still mighty. Cities flourish, trade flows. Scholars debate in marble halls. The Grand Canal hums with grain barges, and the Silk Road stretches westward like a golden artery. But rot has already set in. Kublai's successors, his sons, grandsons, and cousins, are lesser men. They inherit a throne, but not the mind to rule it. Court intrigues multiply, eunuchs whisper, ministers scheme. The emperor becomes a shadow, a figurehead clothed in silk, detached from the people and the steppe. The Chinese population, long tolerant, grows restless. Famines spread, taxes rise. Local officials become warlords in all but name. Banditry blooms, and in the countryside, in muddy villages and hidden valleys, secret societies begin to form. They whisper in temples, they chant in code, they wear red turbans, and they prepare to bring the Yuan crashing down. The fall of the Yuan, the final collapse, begins not with an army, but with despair. Natural disasters strike. The Yellow River changes course, flooding provinces and wiping out harvests. Disease follows, plague, typhus, dysentery, killing millions. The government does little. Corruption eats through the bureaucracy. Silver vanishes. Soldiers go, unpaid. Entire provinces become ungoverned wildlands. Then comes the Red Turban Rebellion, a movement born of both millenarian Buddhism and pure rage. They don't just want to overthrow a dynasty, they believe the world must be purified, that the mandate of heaven has been lost, that a new savior emperor will rise from the ashes. Their armies sweep through the countryside, burning tax offices, killing Mongol officials, toppling Yuan garrisons. The Mongols try to fight back, but they are too few, too scattered, too soft. By the 1350s, the Yuan dynasty is crumbling, and in 1368, a former monk and rebel general named Zhu Yuanzhang marches into Dadu, your grandson's capital, and claims it for the Ming. The Mongols flee north, and just like that, after less than a century, your dynasty in China is gone. The fractured Khanates, but what of the rest of your empire? Your vision once stretched across 4 Khanates, vast and mighty, but none of them are what they once were. Let us walk among them now and witness the slow, uneven death of your dominion. The Golden Horde shadows over the steppe to the northwest. The Golden Horde still reigns over the Russian steppes, the land once ravaged by Batu, your grandson. For a time they are strong. Russian princes pay tribute. Cities like Sarai glow with wealth and trade. But in time the Horde splits between rival houses. Brothers battle brothers. Cities are sacked by their own. Then, in the late 1300s, a new power rises among the Russians, the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Its princes begin to resist Mongol rule. In 1380, at the Battle of Kulikovo, they meet the Horde on open ground and win. The Golden Horde survives, but it is no longer feared. Its decline is inevitable. By the 1500s, it will fracture into fragments. The Kazan, Crimean, and Astrakhan Khanates, each weaker than the last. The Russians, once your prey, become your destroyers. The Ilkhanate, Persia in pieces, in the E. Southwest, your descendants ruled Persia. The Ilkhanate, founded by Hulagu, your grandson who sacked Baghdad. They build palaces. They fund poets. They embrace Islam, but succession crises tear them apart. After the death of Abu Sa'id in 1335, the Ilkhanate collapses. No strong heir remains, warlords rise. The region falls into civil war. Persia becomes a patchwork of competing states, and into this void rides Tamerlane, a man who claims descent from your blood, but not your mind. His empire is brief, his cruelty unmatched. He is not your heir. He is your echo, distorted, deadly, short-lived. The Ilkhanate is no more. The Chagatai Khanate. Between 2 worlds in Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate, founded by your second son, survives the longest, but it too splinters. Western and Eastern halves divide. Local warlords hold the real power. Trade declines. Cities like Samarkand lose their shine. By the 1400s, the Chagatai Khanate is a name only, a memory on a map. Eventually, its remnants are swallowed by the rising Uzbek and Timurid empires, another branch of your family tree, cut off. The Northern remnant, the last Khans of the steppe. Even after the fall of the Yuan, your people, the core Mongols, retreat to the steppe. They call their land the Northern Yuan. For a time they dream of return, of rebuilding, of riding south again. But the world has changed. The Ming fortify their borders, building the great. Wall to new heights, firearms spread, cavalry loses its dominance. The world no longer fears horses, it fears gunpowder. By the 17th century, the Manchus rise in the northeast. They absorb the northern Yuan into their growing Qing Empire. The last Mongol Khanates fall not in fire, but in quiet submission. Your people become subjects. Your empire becomes legend. The legacy you left behind. So what remains? Not your borders. They are dust, not your palaces, they are ruins. But your impact, it echoes still. You changed the world more than any man who ever lived. You connected East and West with a scale never seen before, enabled the Silk Road to thrive under one banner, spread technologies, ideas, religions, and people across continents, brought diplomats, merchants, and travelers into a global web. Even in decline, your empire shaped the birth of the modern world. European maps changed because of you. Chinese politics changed because of you. Islamic empires evolved in response to you. You made history move faster. You reminded the world that no empire is eternal and no horizon is safe. A whisper in the wind, now you ride no more. Your bones lie beneath the steppe in an unmarked grave, but travelers still speak your name. A boy in Hungary hears of the thunder from the east. A monk in Persia copies a scroll about the sacking of Baghdad. A merchant in Venice reads Marco Polo and dreams of Xanadu. They do not always understand you, but they remember you. You were not just a conqueror, you were the storm, and long after your empire is gone, the world still listens for your thunder. Chapter 10. Echoes of Empire. The legacy of Genghis Khan. You are no longer flesh. You are memory. Your bones have turned to dust beneath the vast Mongolian sky, scattered by wind and time. Your empire, once the largest the world had ever seen, has fractured into fragments, then faded into the folds of forgotten kingdoms. Your cities lie in ruins, your palaces have crumbled, but your name remains. And even now, long after the last hoofbeat of your riders has gone silent, the world still remembers. This is not a story of conquest anymore. This is a story of legacy, of the shadow you cast across centuries, of how the world, unknowingly, still walks through the echoes of your dream. A name that endures. You were born as Temujin, a boy with no clan, no wealth, no security. A child left to scavenge for food, to fight wolves and men alike. But by the time you died, the world called you Genghis Khan, universal ruler. The title became legend, and today, the name Genghis Khan still provokes awe, fear, admiration, and sometimes controversy. In Mongolia, you are revered. Your statue rises over the steppe, taller than any building in the capital. Your face adorns currency. Your deeds are taught to every schoolchild. You are the father of a nation and a symbol of strength, unity, and heritage. Elsewhere, your memory is more complicated. To Persians, you are the destroyer of cities and libraries. To the Chinese, you were once a foreign conqueror, but also the founder of a dynasty. To Russians, you are both the scourge of their past and a catalyst of their future unification. And to the West, your name conjures images of savage horsemen, but also an empire that helped birth the modern world. You are remembered not because you were kind, but because you changed everything. Genetics and bloodlines. Your legacy is not just cultural, it is literal. In 2003, scientists discovered that roughly 1 in every 200 men alive today carries a Y chromosome tracing back to a common male ancestor who lived around 800 years ago in Central Asia. The conclusion? It was almost certainly you. Your descendants, through your sons, grandsons, and concubines, spread far and wide. From the Volga to the Yellow River, your bloodline moved like wildfire. You did not just conquer land, you seeded lineages. Your genetic legacy, unknowingly passed down for centuries, may be the most widespread in human history. But this is not about genes alone. It is about how deeply you embedded yourself into the future. A catalyst for global exchange. You did not just build an empire, you built a bridge. Before you, the Silk Road was a broken path, dangerous, disjointed, disrupted by bandits and feuding states. But under your rule and that of your descendants, it became a superhighway of civilization. Silk from China flowed to Europe. Persian glass and medicine reached Korea. Ideas, inventions, foods, religions, all passed under your protection. You enforced a law called the Yasa, unknown in its full text today but remembered as a code of ruthless order. Merchants were protected, roads were guarded, passports were issued, and for the first time in history, it was possible to travel from Venice to the court of the Great Khan safely. You shrank the world, and that shrinking would lead, centuries later, to globalization, the spread of knowledge and innovation. When you took cities, you didn't just loot them, you took craftsmen, doctors, astronomers, and scribes. You brought them back to Karakoram. You asked them questions. You listened. You were curious, not just about war, but about how the world worked. Your empire became a melting pot of genius. Chinese printing and gunpowder made their way west. Islamic mathematics and medicine flowed east. Mongolian military innovations, like the compound bow and strategic mobility, reshaped warfare across continents. Without your empire, there would be no Marco Polo, no age of exploration, perhaps no Renaissance. You connected the world before, ships and satellites, and that connection altered the course of human history, the iron hand of empire. But your legacy is not without darkness. You killed millions. Cities burned because you ordered it. Entire cultures were uprooted, fields salted, scholars murdered, libraries turned to ash. Baghdad, the jewel of the Islamic world, fell under your grandson's army. Its river ran black with ink, red with blood. You destroyed as much as you built, and for many you are remembered as a symbol of brutal conquest, of apocalyptic war, of the desolation that follows empire. There are two truths here. You were both builder and destroyer, light and shadow, Genghis Khan and Temujin. Rebirth, through Mongolian pride. For centuries after your death, your name was buried, especially in China, where foreign dynasties sought to suppress the Mongol past. But in the 20th century, something changed. As Mongolia became a modern nation, it turned to you for identity. Your secret history, once hidden, was celebrated. Your face appeared. In statues, books, songs, you became a symbol of independence, resilience, and strength, a unifier. A visionary taught today, schoolchildren in Ulaanbaatar recite your laws. Tourists visit your birthplace. Scholars reassess your legacy with nuance. You have been reborn, not as a warlord, but as a founding father. Genghis Khan in modern memory around the world. Your name has seeped into culture, from novels to video games, from university courses to YouTube documentaries. You are a figure that defies simple description. To some, you are the hero king, a master of strategy and unification. To others, you are the warlord, the tyrant on horseback, and yet in both views you remain unforgettable. That may be your true legacy, not just what you built or broke, but how deeply you etched yourself into the collective memory of humanity. The final. Right, so where do you go now? You who once rode across the world with 10,000 hooves thundering behind you. You go into legend. You go into the stories passed down from grandfather to grandson, into the textbooks and temples, into the hills where the wind never stops. Perhaps even now, in some corner of the steppe, a rider stands beneath the stars, feeling your presence in the silence. They say you are still out there, Temujin, buried in a secret tomb, untouched by time, guarded by curses and myth. They say the grass never grows where your funeral procession passed. They say you will return, but you don't need to, because in many ways, you never left. You are in the Mongol script carved into stone, in the DNA of 100 million people, in the memory of an empire that once ruled the world. You are Genghis Khan. You were a man. You became a storm. And now, you are eternity.